you at the press terrace, sir. You can't even believe. So we are very glad that you are finally here, and I will just leave it to you and the floor for questions.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say that it's great to be back. I just want to say it's great to be back at JLF. The last couple of years, the virtual JLFs were just not the same thing, because what you have here is an opportunity to meet people face to face, get them to sign your books, take selfies with them, all of that stuff, meet informally, exchange ideas and thoughts. Even authors discovering other authors whom they've read but don't know personally. It's been that kind of an amazing experience, and I'm very, very glad that the magic Jaipur Literature Festival formula is back in evidence in 2022.
Okay, before we begin, please raise your hands when you have a question. Also, as I said, he's here in his capacity as an author, so we would like to restrict the questions to his sessions.
No, it's all right. I don't want the restriction, but I mean, principally, whatever, since I've done 5 sessions here, I've said a lot of things you might want to know more about. The floor is yours. Are you going to pick the question at the end? Oh, you're sorry.
Please raise your hand if you have a question.
Sir, I'm Dave from Indian Media Group. My question to you is that with the recent poll debacle that the Congress faced in the 5 assembly elections, do you think it will open the floodgates for more congressmen to leave the party?
You know, I'm grinning because as soon as she said, I'm here as an author, you asked me a question that has nothing to do with JLF. But I will just say that, listen, obviously this is a setback that many, many people in the party want to come to grips with. The Congress Working Committee is meeting in a few minutes at 4 o'clock in Delhi. Since I'm not a member, I have no idea of what exactly is on the agenda, but I would assume that this is the principal concern, that the party needs to get its act together. So I'm quite confident that once we've seen the outcome of the Working Committee, we can have a more useful exchange than doing it now.
So, do you think it can open floodgates for more party men to leave the party?
Look, I mean, I think people have to understand their own motivations and the way that suits them. I'm on the record that I think ultimately politics has to be about principles, values, and commitments to those principles and values. So, as long as the party is an effective vehicle to advance the principles and values that you all hold dear, you should stay in the party and just try and make it a better and more effective fighting force. So I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Ms. Tharoor, since you have allowed her to ask these questions. Last time I met you in Delhi, you said that Rahul Gandhi should assume leadership of the party, should become president of the party, and as long as he is not becoming, he is, doing this harm to the party. I can't recollect the exact words you said, but sir, do you think if Rahul Gandhi is a reluctant politician and his reluctance is making parties to pay something?
I'm not going to go into that issue right now. As I said, the matter is before the Working Committee. It's the body that is empowered to reflect on all this. We all have enormous respect for the president of the party, Sonia Gandhi. So I would rather leave it right there and see what they collectively come up with. I mean, the meeting has been called precisely because of these results at a very, very short notice. It's an emergency call for a meeting. That suggests that very serious issues will be discussed. And I'd like to show my colleagues the respect that I will leave it to them to discuss it and then react to what they decide. Okay? Thanks. Yeah.
नमस्ते सर। यस 2 साल पहले मैंने जेएलएफ में आपको पूछा था, यही डीजी पैलेस में, सीडब्ल्यूसी में आप जैसे लोगों की ज़रूरत है, पृथ्वीराज चव्हाण जैसे, शशि थरूर जैसे इंटेलिजेंट लोगों की वहाँ ज़रूरत है, लेकिन दे आर नॉट इन द फ्रेम. बट एज अ रिफॉर्मेटिव फॉर्म फॉर द पार्टी, एज यू आर सेइंग, the more reforms will happen. We all hope to see you in some deciding position in the party. What's your take on that?
That's very kind of you. All I can say is that having come into politics now and won 3 elections, I hope I've demonstrated my commitment to the party and my interest in serving the party in whatever capacity the party wants me in. Exactly. So far, the capacities the party has entrusted me, I have tried to fulfill to the best of my ability. And I'll carry on with that spirit.
You have talked about mass appeal that time.
Well, I mean, there's various kinds of mass appeal, but I think getting elected to the Lok Sabha is also proof of one kind of mass appeal. Thank you, sir.
Sir, this is Yash with the Lokmat Time. I've been listening, every year to you and also watching your political activities. One thing, two questions, very small. How do you rate Mr. Modi, our Prime Minister?
I think that he's a man of tremendous vigor and dynamism. And I think that he has done some things that are very, very impressive, especially politically. He has won a lot of elections that many of us assumed would be closer than they ended up being. On the negative side, I believe he's unleashed some forces in this society that are dividing our nation on communal grounds, on religious grounds, which to my mind is actually introducing a toxin into our social ethos. That is unfortunate. So, but I don't want to personalize this. This is not about an individual, it's about the ruling party and the forces of the establishment and their ideology and ways of proceeding, of which, of course, Mr. Modi is the embodiment. But he is only an individual. The things that are happening in the name of his party and his parivar. And that's dismaying. And I speak as an Indian citizen, I speak as a Hindu. When I see somebody being bashed up within an inch of his life and being ordered to say Jai Shri Ram, which he doesn't believe in, that's not my Hinduism. When I see people being demonized because of their faith or principally identified by their faith rather than by what their character is or what they're contributing to the country, then I feel, as an Indian citizen, I feel let down. So there are all of these things that truly worry me. I don't want to call anybody good or bad. I just believe that people who may have great abilities can also preside over very wrong things. And that's what we've seen happening in the last few years.
Second thing, you are very able person. If you were given a chance to lead the party, Congress party, would you do that?
I think I pass on that simply because it's a purely theoretical, hypothetical, probably impossible question. So let me pass on.
Okay, just because, so you've been very generous and taken questions, but considering that we have very less time from you, we really would want to have questions around the festival, and I request if we can circle around that, please.
She's got the mic, so then Kovish gives the mic.
Sir, hi. Good afternoon, sir.
Whoever has the mic, whoever she's given the mic.
Over here.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. I'm from Connected to India, and I believe we had in 2018 we had you in Singapore for an event, Shashi Tharoor.
Good event, yeah. I remember it.
Yeah. And a lot of the things you said in 2018, you've also been saying at the sessions over here. Your Indian/diaspora dual identity, then the legislative representation issue with the 43rd Amendment, which is due to expire in 2026, and of course the future of the Congress party, which was a hot topic in 2018 and is a hot topic here as well. So my question is, what would 2022 Dr. Shashi Tharoor want to add to what 2018 Dr. Shashi Tharoor had said?
I've been saying all of these things, and I've been saying them very conscious of current events as well. And frankly, this is an ongoing thing. It's like saying, what picture do you want to paint of a moving train? The train is still moving. So the reality of 2018 may not have dramatically changed enough by 2022. Some aspects have developed and some have actually gone downhill, as we know. But we can certainly say that I have not, shall we say truthfully, I have not pulled my punches, I have not held my views back. And throughout this festival, there have been a number of issues in my 5 different panels. Today we had a panel on surveillance and what's happening with our country becoming more and more of a surveillance state. These are important contemporary issues. I've had discussions on everything from colonialism and the princes to the conversation that we have conducted with me across a whole range of topics yesterday. And I'm not shying away from any of these things, young man. I just say that as far as I'm concerned, we have to look at the situation as it is and speak relevantly and appropriately and constructively. Saying something for the sake of saying something achieves nothing. It's a question of saying something with a view to achieving something that matters.
So just to follow up about the Panopticon panel, I just came from there. So in the 70s, you had the OG surveillance scandal, the Watergate scandal. And today, when we had the Pegasus scandal, it was business as usual, and Watergate brought down the Nixon presidency. So, given that even they're different countries, different decades, but both our nations are purported to be champions of democracy. Why the contrast in reactions across all sectors, not just the governments, but legal, media, public? Why such a contrast?
I think it's a very fair question, but you're asking the wrong guy. You should be asking the government and the judiciary. The Supreme Court has seized on the matter, and we have to see what they come up with. But right now, there is a whole process. I gather that Justice Ravindran has filed an interim report. We heard about that today. We don't know what the contents of that report are and what the next steps will be. But the matter is not over as long as it's before the Supreme Court.
आपसे सिर्फ एक प्रश्न है, अभी जो वर्तमान विधानसभा चुनाव है, खास करके यूपी के बारे में आपका एक कमेंट चाहते हैं।
We can move to the question.
क्या फेयर इलेक्शन है?
देखिए, यूपी के बारे में मैं सिर्फ ये कहूँगा कि बहुत लोग ये प्रतीक्षा नहीं की कि भाजपा सरकार की बड़ी मेजॉरिटी के साथ वापस आए। तो क्यों आया, ये सब तो लोग स्टडी कर रहे हैं, वोटर से बात कर रहे हैं। एक चीज़ भी मानना चाहिए कि समाजवादी पार्टी का वोट बहुत बढ़ गया और उनकी सीट्स भी काफ़ी बढ़ गई, तो एक अच्छा विपक्ष भी होगा यूपी विधानसभा में।
मेरे पास 100 वीडियो है मैम, 100 वीडियो है मेरे पास। जो यूपी चुनाव के ऊपर जो भी मार प्रैक्टिस हुई सारी,
तो मैल प्रैक्टिस के बारे में इलेक्शन कमीशन को भी जाइए और दूसरे हारने वाली पार्टी को।
So you already mentioned that.
You asked your question.
Yeah, after this mic, please.
Yeah.
So you already mentioned that it's great to be back on ground. So my question is, if you could please elaborate on your experience, how the curation of the festival is, or any other special experiences you may have from the past 3 days.
Well, you know, we were all a bit uncertain because obviously, first of all, it's been virtual the last couple of years. Secondly, it was announced to be hybrid, and people didn't understand how that would be in practice, whether the audiences would be severely restricted, etc. And the third thing that was, of course, the shift of venue. It was no longer the much beloved venue of the BD Palace. But all of those fears were belied, I would say. I think that the venue has turned out to be excellent. I think that we've got the very familiar looking JLF tents in all the locations. Everything has worked the way it used to work. The accommodations and everything are fine. The authors are comfortable. The facility is compact. And as a result, everything can be done within it. And the audiences are not small. My gosh, we've got huge crowds. I was just very impressed with the fact that in a couple of my sessions, I saw over 1,000 people squeezing in. And that suggests that we are pretty much heading back to the good old days. So I think that for me, it's been in every respect a big relief that this first physical event of JLF has worked as well as could have been expected, even more, perhaps better than it was expected.
We did see that people were even sitting on the floor for your session.
Yes. On the floor against the walls, it was quite astonishing.
Hello, sir. Sir, I want to ask you a question since you were also at the UN once upon a time. How would you, if you were given all the power in the world, how would you resolve the Ukraine-Russia crisis?
Well, look, first of all, no one has all the powers in the world, sadly. And I think that, you know, there's always this concern about could something have been done before it erupted, before these thousands of lives have been lost in this frankly senseless killing of war. My own gut instinct is that much more should have been attempted, especially once the Americans had telegraphed their intelligence information. Perhaps someone like the UN Secretary General could have gone to both capitals as well as to Washington, as well as to NATO headquarters, and done some sort of shuttle work to see what the Russians needed to dissuade them from launching an invasion could have been provided to them without war and with obviously adequate security measures and safeguards for the other side. But I don't know, because, you know, I'm not in those positions anymore. I'm not sitting in the UNSC's office. I don't know what he attempted, whether he attempted and was rebuffed, whether he was asked not to take an initiative. Be that as it may, we have seen no successful initiative to diffuse the crisis before it erupted into war. And to my mind, that's been the biggest disappointment. War itself is tragic, futile, merciless, unfortunate, all the words you can think of that everyone has been uttering. We've seen so many heart-rending stories, so many people killed, so many buildings destroyed. For what? And therefore, ideally, a solution should have been found before the war started.
Sir, hi. Sir, I'm here. So don't you think that the poll debacle in UP has raised serious questions on the leadership of Priyanka Gandhi?
Yeah, I think Priyanka Gandhi actually did a remarkably energetic job campaigning. I must say that you will have seen her everywhere, including getting arrested a couple of times by the UP police. You've seen her very much on the spot and running through the state. I was in touch with her intermittently during the campaign, and I would say she had no illusions. She could see that particularly the polarization politics of the BJP was conversely driving others to go to one party, and this happened to be Samajwadi and not us. Now, whether as this young lady here is suggesting, the numbers are not totally accurate and there is something wrong with the procedures, there were malpractices, that has to be investigated and established. But from my point of view, I don't think that the Congress per se can be faulted because on the grounds of one person's campaigning or not. I think the issues are rather larger for the party as well as for the party's viability in some states where our presence has been systematically going down over the last 30 years.
Sir, I am Shrinivas here.
Sorry.
Sir, आप थॉटफुल भी हैं, मोटिवेटेड भी हैं, कई बार हमने आपकी स्पीच सुनी है, ये फैक्ट है। जिस तरह का रिजल्ट आ रहा है आपकी पार्टी में, आप अपने आप को कैसे मोटिवेट कर पा रहे हैं? क्योंकि डाउन एवरी डे। और सेकंड, G23 की जहाँ तक बात है, वो अलग कुछ बोलते हैं, और जो यंग जनरेशन हमने देख लिया, उन्होंने पार्टी को कहाँ से कहाँ लेके आ गए। क्या सॉल्यूशन है सर? कुछ लगता है कि कहीं कुछ बचा हुआ है?
देखिए, मोटिवेशन की मैं सिर्फ ये कहूँगा कि मैं देश प्रेमी हूँ। मैं मेरा भारत को अच्छी सेंस में महान देखना चाहता हूँ, नहीं कि बड़ी छाती और मसल्स की उससे सिर्फ के महान, लेकिन भारत महान है तो भारत के भारतवासियों सब खुश हैं, उनको खाने पीने का मिलता है, उनको बच्चों को पढ़ाई सिखाई दे सकते हैं, अब भविष्य में काम की उम्मीद भी हो सकते हैं सब लोग को। उस किस्म का भारत के लिए मैं अभी भी संघर्ष करने के लिए तैयार हूँ। लेकिन मेरे ख्याल में जब आप कहते हैं कि G23 वैसे भी नाम आप लोग माध्यम में दिए हैं, मेरे ख्याल में 2-3 दोस्त एक चिट्ठी लिखी और जो भी दिल्ली में आ सके कोविड के लॉकडाउन के बावजूद चिट्ठी साइन करने के लिए, वो तो 23 थे। अगर 25 आए तो आप G25 कहेंगे, अगर 100 आए तो क्या G100 कहेंगे, क्या मालूम। ये कोई जी नहीं है इसमें, जी हजूरी भी नहीं है इसमें। तो क्या कहना चाहता था कि हम चाहते थे कि पार्टी अच्छा हो जाए, पार्टी ज़्यादा एक्टिव हो जाए, और इसलिए मेरे ख्याल में मेरे दोस्त ये सब लिख के बताना चाहता था पार्टी को रिवाइव करने के कोई उपाय होनी चाहिए। अब तो 2 साल हो गए उसके बाद और ज़्यादा बदलाव तो नहीं हुए, इसलिए हम कह रहे हैं कि कुछ प्रोग्रेस होनी चाहिए, कुछ चेंजेस होनी चाहिए। और आज 4 बजे वर्किंग कमेटी सारे विषय पर चर्चा करेगी, कोई शक नहीं है। उसके बाद देखते हैं।
So this is Mane Gupta from PTI.
Hi.
Sir, many political pundits and experts here in the sessions are now saying that the election results were a foregone conclusion. What's your take on that? And which state election personally actually surprised you the most? So one more thing, in the previous session that you had yesterday, you said it is wrong when your party colleagues will jump the ship for a particularly right reason, because you can't for most of your life oppose a particular ideology and then one fine day start defending it, right? But sir, don't you think that probably out of choice, because they were yearning for a change and the change didn't come, so out of choice, out of frustration, they jumped the ship. The same change that you're now saying is unavoidable. Could you please elaborate on the change part, and whether you think that the change part also includes Gandhi's putting in the papers?
Listen, I'm not going to get into that level of detail, but I will say that as far as your first observation, that the elections were a foregone conclusion, that would surprise me, because if it was a foregone conclusion, all the pundits should have been saying that for the last 5-6 weeks of the election campaign. Very few, if any, did. It was only with the exit polls coming out that the tail turned and people said BJP is going to win. Until then, there's no question in my mind that most people were expecting a very, very close fight. And some were saying anecdotally that Samajwadi was ahead. So it depends entirely on where you are. My own view is that the Indian voter has a capacity to surprise people. One day they will also surprise the BJP. But right now, they've given the BJP what they wanted. And then on the second part of your question, my point was very simple. I'm not denying any political colleague the right to leave a party that for whatever reason fails to fulfill his or her expectations of that party. But a party is above all a vehicle for your convictions, for your principles and values. And those are what you're defending. What is a political party? A political party is supposed to be a way of conceptualizing a better society for your country and seeking to achieve the means to deliver that better society. That is what politics is. It's not about power, quote unquote. Power is to an end, and that end is to change society, create a better India for me. That's my understanding of politics. That's why I'm in politics. That's why I spend time doing this. Now, in those circumstances, there are some completely incompatible ideas, right? And one of the incompatible ideas is an idea that sees India through a Hindu-Muslim binary, or a Hindu versus minority binary, or as a Hindu Rashtra, and an India that is seen as a place of diversity, of variety, of pluralism, of coexistence. These two are so fundamentally opposed that you cannot in all credibility defend the one and join the other. That's the honest truth for me. I know people have done it, but to me they have lost all credibility. But if you want to leave your party, to go to a like-minded party, or to start your own party, or to create some sort of regional party that embodies the same principles but is no longer trying to win power nationally but is doing it regionally, all of these options are there. And people have done those too, and no one has had the same kind of stricture against them. That's the only point I was trying to.
So which state election particularly surprised you the most? Results. Which state election?
Well, I must say that we thought we would do better in Uttarakhand than we did. And we thought that Goa, we had a very good chance of being the largest single party. But mind you, in both states, the numbers of voters are relatively small, and that perhaps contributed.
Sir,
hi. Mr. Tharoor. Last, Mr. Tharoor.
I think we are done with this session, so
Mr. Tharoor. Last one question. I wanted to know.
We really are.
Last question.